Okay, so what we'll do today is talk about multinomial logistic regression. This is a case where if you have some outcome that is a nominal outcome, like who you voted for, but there's more than two outcomes. So in logistic regression, if you voted for Democrat or Republican, you could code 1, 0 and another 1, 1. But if you have three outcomes, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or maybe four outcomes and then didn't vote, if you want to simultaneously predict the odds of being in one category versus another category, then you can't use regular binary logistic regression. You have to use multinomial logistic regression. And so we're going to do that today, just so you are aware that that is another possibility. So now I think at this point, you guys have been exposed to all the different types of regression analyses, at least the major categories of them, that pretty much should cover any sort of type of analysis that you'd want to do in the future for some future project. And so because we did the linear regression, we did the logistic, and now this is the multinomial logistic that could account for any number of outcomes that you're just testing to see the odds of being in one category given certain set of predictors versus another category. Okay, so let me go ahead. Before I begin, people who are here, are there any questions about anything that we did last week concerning logistic regression? Because this is just an extension of logistic regression. It's just another thing that you can do with it that is actually another entry in, it's another analyze entry in SPSS, but it is more or less an extension of logistic regression. Anything that people want to bring up? Oh, okay, let me go ahead and then share. Okay, so this is what I just posted on Moodle here recently. There is a video here that does have someone giving a demonstration of multinomial regression, logistic regression in SPSS. So you can watch that in addition to this video that's going to be posted. Today, we'll do this in-class demonstration, and then here's the homework, which I will come back to after I get done with the demonstration. And this is this homework 7 that would be due on the 27th. This is also going to appear on the third exam, and so it is worthwhile here to take note of what's going on, but it is just really an extension of already what you've done with logistic regression. So if we go in to SPSS, what we want to do in this first exercise here is we want to analyze marital status as a dependent variable. Okay, so marital status has 5 different categories you could fall into: never married, or not married, or single or not married, married, and then divorced, widowed, and separated. I think all the categories. So we could treat that as a dependent variable and saying, okay, what other factors may predict among the parents in this study the likelihood of being in some other category, some other marital status category other than married. And so we're going to treat married here, being married, as the reference category. And then we're going to use these other parental variables as covariates. That's what they're called in the SPSS menu screen. They like to change the names up on you, but covariates, it's really just another name for independent variables or independent predictors. And so we're going to use, I think, PA12 as their education level, self-reported happiness, and whether or not they've received public assistance as being predictive of whether or not someone's going to be in a certain marital status. So we're just looking at marital status as the dependent variable and these predictors as the independent variables. So to do this in SPSS, what you want to do is, okay, so we go up to our familiar entry here, analyze, and when we go to regression, we're going to go to a different place than binary logistic regression. We're going into where it says multinomial logistic regression. So it's just below binary. Okay, and let me reset this. Actually, I'm not going to reset this right now. I just want to let this sit for a moment before I go in to run this thing, because this is ultimately what we want to do. We want to have parental status here as the dependent variable. And marital status. Yeah, marital status is a dependent variable. And then we have your independent variables under here where it says covariance. Okay, so that's how you set this thing up. But we are using PA10, which is marital status, as a dependent variable. So we're trying to see what other parental factors help to classify people in one of 5 relationship or marital statuses. So let's go back first real quick and take a look at how the variable marital status was coded. Let me move over to that screen real quick and see if you guys can, my share thing is getting all out of whack. Okay, it should, well, it's doing this. Let me let it load back up here. Okay, search for PA10. Right. Okay, so here is this marital status variable. And it's coded like this: single, never married, married, widowed, divorced, separated. And then 6 is a respondent refused to answer. So what we're really looking at is these first 5. And what I want you all to do, what we're going to do is use married as the reference category. And so on the dependent variable side. And so we're going to see how all these predictors affect your likelihood of being never married or widowed, divorced, separated compared to people who are married. All right. Okay, so that's what we're doing. That's how the dependent variable that we're going to be looking at in the our multinomial logistic regression is measured. And so, okay, so we go back to this. Now, when we put our dependent variable in, this is something different in multinomial logistic regression. You have to pick what you want to have as the reference category, okay? So if you recall, married is coded as 2 in that variable, on that variable. So you can make the reference category the first category or the last category, or you can say I want it to be, I want it custom and I want it to be value 2, because that is how married is coded in that PA10 variable. Married is coded as 2. So I want to compare all of these categories to the odds of getting married or being married. And so I'm setting that to 2, making that then the reference category is custom, and it's set to 2 because that's how married is coded for the variable PA10, which is our dependent variable. Okay, and then we're putting in a level of education. This is the variable PA12, parental education. So that's just a continuous variable. Higher the level, more education. So we know education affects marital status later on in life. Economic status. People in poor economic status tend to be less likely to be married. So we'll just see how likely it is compared to other relationship statuses. So we'll see how this dummy variable for receiving public assistance affects them. And then there's self-reported happiness. One can argue, well, happiness is the byproduct of a happy relationship, but it might be that happier people are more likely to find other happy people and form stable marriages as compared to getting divorced. Okay, so we're going to treat this happiness, self-reported happiness, as an independent predictor along with these other 2. So when we run this, what we will get is first you'll get some output up here. It shows you the percentage married, widowed, divorced, separated. So that's what you're looking at. These are basically, and also single, never married. So we're getting our descriptive statistics. Yeah, Samantha.
Yeah, sorry, I fell behind when you were choosing the reference case. I forgot, what did you put for the value one?
I put it at 2 because we want to compare these outcomes to married, and because married is coded as 2 on the variable PA10, then you would set it at 2 because we want married to be the comparison category, the reference category.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we did that, okay, and so we have, this will come out. We will also get, there's some model fitting information, that's not too important. Here we have this R square, these R square stats. Now these will vary. Here again, we have our Nagelkerke R square and the Cox-Snell R square. And then we have this new one, this McFadden R square. All of these are analogs to the explained variation measure, the R squared stat that you get, or the adjusted R square stat that you get in linear regression. And so it looks like the Nagelkerke R square is the highest one. And so if you want to be generous, you could say at best it's explaining about 11.1% of the variation in relationship or marital status is explained by these predictors. So 11.1% of the variation in marital status or relationship status can be explained by these predictors according to this model. Okay. So the next, there's also a likelihood ratio test, which is not too terribly important. What is though is this model down here where it shows you now the effects of these independent predictors on the odds of being single, never married compared to being married. Okay, and so if we look at the first one here, we see this is the effect that higher levels of education have on the odds of being never married or single compared to being married. And so we can look at, here's the unstandardized beta, but this is a logistic regression. And so we want to look at the EXPB, the exponentiated beta. And so you can interpret this like you would any other regression. For every level or every unit increase in level of education, the odds of being single or never married compared to being married go down by about 8%. Because it's below 1, it's below 1 by about 0.08 or 0.08 exactly. And so you would say that for every unit increase in level of education, the odds that you will be single or never married goes, compared to being married, goes down by about 8%. Okay, so we can infer from that the more education you have, the greater the likelihood you will be married compared to being never married as an adult. Okay, so we look at the next one for single, never married as the outcome, as the dependent variable, and we see receive public assistance. Okay, and so this is a big unstandardized beta effect, and we look at the exponentiated beta, it's absolutely huge. And so the odds of being single or never married are about 9.5 times greater for people receiving public assistance for them to be never married than it is for them to be married. And so your odds of being never married go up by about 9.5 times versus being married. So that is a big increase there. And so happiness then is shown here. And here, by the way, I'm skimming over, but here are the significance tests. And so here's the effect of happiness. It's also significant. So that one's highly significant, that one's significant. This effect is this significant. So so this is saying, so as happiness increases, the odds of being never single married decrease compared to the odds of being married. And so for every unit increase in happiness, the odds of being never married compared to being married go down by, what is this, 1 minus that number. So 60, 60, 65%. Oops, let me just put in the calculator real quick. Roundabout. No, just a moment. Which one did I just do? Oh, no, it's, yeah, it would go down by 56.2%. So 1 minus 0.38 is 0.562. And so you could say that for every unit increase in happiness, the odds of being never married compared to married go down by about 56.2%, which 1 minus 0.438 is 0.562. And so that can be interpreted as going down by 56.2%. Okay. And so notice that there is an intercept here as well. So this is the intercept for when you're predicting never married or single versus married. Down here, we have yet another intercept and then the same predictors again, but this is predicting being widowed versus married. And then here again, we have a new intercept, but this is the intercept when you are predicting being divorced, being married versus being married using these same predictors. And then finally, again, we see the intercept for when you're predicting separated, the odds of being in a separated relationship status compared to being married, given these predictors. Okay, so it's really looking at this in terms of 4 different outcomes simultaneously. And it's estimating, okay, well, you have to pick a reference category, but what is the odds of then being, like in our first example, given a certain set of predictors, never or single, never married or single versus married. And then you can see then the effects of these individual predictors on that outcome. And so for the homework, what I'm asking you to do is do just what we did in this assignment. Is you're looking at the last time, though, a respondent said that he or she received a dental exam. And it is an outcome that has, I think, a similar number of possibilities, maybe 5 or 6, but you're using some set of parental predictors to look at the odds of getting a dental exam versus at some time versus within the last 12 months. So all of this you have to remember is always in reference to whatever you set as the reference category for the dependent variable, because there are really, you're looking here at 4 outcomes compared to this 5th one, which is married. And so all of this for never married is the effect, or the effect on the odds of being single or never married compared to being married. And likewise, these are all the effects on the odds of being widowed compared to being married. And once more, the effects of all of these on the odds of being divorced compared to married, and then the effects of all these on the odds of being separated versus being married. Okay. So are there questions over what we're looking at right here thus far with regard to the effects of these things on the outcomes and the fact you have to set a reference category?
My biggest thing is understanding how to, because I got it wrong on the last assignment. You commented about the exponential b.
Yeah.
And I didn't like interpret it right. The way you explained it kind of made more sense, but I'm still having a hard time understanding like the 56% or like 9 times 2 times larger, this, like that. That's kind of confusing still.
So if the exponentiated beta is a 1, that means that there is no effect on the odds, and then it won't be significant over here like it would be. But this, if it's above 1, like right here. So if we look at the effect that receiving a public assistance has on the odds of being widowed versus married, it is 1.482. So that means that receiving public assistance pushes up the odds of being widowed versus married by about 48.2%, because it's 0.482 above 1, and so you can convert that into 48.2%. Okay. So do you see where I came up with that 48.2%?
Yeah.
Because it's
that
just
makes
how much
sense.
over, yeah, it's just how much over 1 you are. And so if you're 1.482, so you're 48.2% over 1. And so you can interpret that as raising the odds of being widowed versus married if you're receiving public assistance by 48.2%.
So if you'd be looking at like separated receiving public assistance, it's 8.238, I believe.
Yeah. So
Would that
that's a huge percentage increase, and you wouldn't say like if it's okay. So for example, if this were just a 2, that would mean that in receiving public assistance increases the odds of being separated versus married by 100%. And if it were 2.5, it would be 150%. But once you get up to that high number, usually you just say it multiplies the odds by 8.238 of being separated versus being married. You can just say it multiplies the odds of that outcome by that amount. Because you're in the hundreds of percentage of odds of increase, and so for that you would just say you could say it multiplies the odds by 8.238. You wouldn't have to say a percent increase because it's increasing
Would
it
it,
by multiple. Yeah. So
would it be the same for the,
go ahead? Sorry.
would it be the same for divorce receiving since it's
You cut out there. So what was the first part?
6? Would it be the same for divorce receiving public assistance?
Divorce receiving public assistance. Yeah. So what you're saying there would be that receiving public assistance increases the odds of being divorced, or it multiplies the odds of being divorced by a factor of 4.036 versus being married. So you can say that if it gets into above a 2, or if it's 2 or above, like a 2, you could also say it just doubles the odds. This is saying it's quadrupling the odds, or you can say it's multiplying the odds of being divorced versus being married by a factor of 4.036. So yeah, it's the same thing. You're just if it's a very large number. In terms of this exponentiated beta, if it's well above 2, you can start saying it multiplies the odds of that happening by that amount. Okay, does that make sense, folks? About how you would say how you express this, how you'd write this out, exponentiated betas. So again, if it's below 1, then it's just 1 minus that number is the percent that it's dropping the odds. And so it can never drop the odds of something happening by more than 100%, but it can raise the odds of something happening by over 100% because it could be multiplicative. It could be 5, 10, 20 times more likely to happen. That's well within what makes sense mathematically. So okay, so that's that for interpreting the exponentiated betas. It's the same way as how we interpreted them in logistic regression. It's just that when you have multinomial logistic regression, you have more than 2 outcomes. It's because it's no longer a binary coded thing. You have, in this case, we have really 5 outcomes, and then we're treating the married as the reference category. So we're modeling the odds of being in one of 4 categories using it's 4 different equations here that you're looking at, and it's all in reference to married. So the odds of being never married or single with this certain predictor compared to being married. Okay. So if we look back at the homework. So analyze last dental exam as a dependent variable using multinomial logistic regression. Treat within the past 12 months as the reference category and include at least 4 variables from the parent section as covariates, independent variables. For all significant independent effects, interpret the exponentiated b's in terms of their effects on each of the outcomes. And so you don't have to tell me for ones that are non-significant what the exponentiated beta means. I don't care. You can say, well, among those that are significant, here are the results. Okay, so that's usually the way that this stuff gets reported. People don't care too much about non-significant results. You probably should, because that can be meaningful too, but at least for the purposes of this homework, you just have to report on the ones that are statistically significant. And it is up to you which parental variables that you use. The idea here, though, is that parental behaviors may have some impact on how frequently children get to go to the dentist. We know there is a disparity in outcomes largely based around income and educational background, how frequently kids go to the dentist. And so this is just one of these types of analyses that lends itself to multinomial regression. So if we look at how that variable is coded, just so people are clear, it is a variable, it's S52. So this is a variable that was asked of them when they're in school, because this was first a survey that was given to them in school and they followed them up at home. So last dental exam, and here the way it was measured. And so one is within the last 12 months. And so that's one I want you to treat as the reference category. And so you're modeling the effect of parental variables on these outcomes within the 1 or 2 years. More than 2 years ago, I don't remember, and I never had a dental exam. And so you want to look at parental predictors as affecting the odds of being in categories 2 through 5 as compared to being in category 1, which is ideally like the best category to be in if you are a teenager or a child that has, your teeth are important. And so people will want to know, well, how do these less, advantaged kids in terms of their how frequently they're seeing the dentist fare given a certain set of predictors. And so that is what you're using as the dependent variable in the assignment. And there will be something similar like this on the exam, where I have you look at maybe just the results of a multinomial regression and tell me, what's going on. And so the whole thing here really is looking at, or the main thing is looking at those exponentiated betas and interpreting them correctly in terms of the impact of the odds of being in some category versus whatever the reference category is. And then so with this homework, you want to set the reference category. There is a setting where you can make it the first category or the last category, and that automatically set to 1 or 5, or you can customize it. You can make it custom and then set it to 1. Either way will work. Okay. And when you run it, it tells you what the reference category was. And so if you make a mistake and realize you didn't set the right reference category, you can just redo it. And the reference categories can be changed in and out, so you can change the reference category out if you want to look at it in terms of having a different reference category in there. And that might be meaningful too, but I'm not having you do that for the homework. You just need to do it once and set within the last 12 months as the reference category. Okay, folks. So yeah, that is it. For today. Are there any questions on any of the most recent homework, the logistics stuff that's due today, or this stuff? All right, if not, you are free to go. Yeah.
For the covariates for the homework for assignment number 7.
Yeah.
You said that we have to do the PA one. Which ones could I use? Could I use like the same one that you used, the receiving public? Could I use that one? I think it was PA or 20.
Yes, you sure can. You can use any of the ones that we use today in the example. That's fine. You just have to pick 4 of them. And so, yeah, there's more than that to pick from. There's questions about like their health habits. There's questions about their religious habits. And so, yeah, you just pick 4 that at least would make sense for this example. There are some variables that are not coded kind of suit this, but just stick with ones that would make sense for logistic regression, would make total sense for this. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome. Okay.
I just want to make sure we don't have to do anything about the exponential b's that are less than like 1 point something. Because I have a lot of like 0.799, 0.852. I don't have to interpret those at all, just the ones that are higher.
Okay, the ones you have to interpret are the ones that are statistically significant. So if the p-values are 0.05 or lower, the significance test, that is, if it's 0.05 or less, then you want to interpret the exponentiated beta for that. So it's only the ones that are statistically significant do you need to bother reporting on.
Okay.
All right, folks. Yeah, so if there is something that comes up, please ask me sooner than later. But we will, if you want to meet up on Thursday to work on something, we can do that. There will be the third exam that I think will be posted later on this week. And so that'll be up there. And next week, we'll just look for the graduate projects. They're going to post them, and then you can write some comments after they have posted them on Moodle. They're supposed to post just a PowerPoint that's recorded that presents what they worked on for their project. So if there are not any questions, you're welcome to go. But I will look forward then to seeing you on Thursday if there is something that comes up. If there's not something right now, but you're welcome to go. And I will see you soon enough. Okay. So see what you can do with this, and I will talk to you soon.